Endoparasitic is a recently released survival horror game on Steam by Narayan Walters about a scientist named Clyde getting his legs and left arm ripped off by mutated creatures on an asteroid research base. The unique selling point? You have to move, shoot, interact, and reload all with your one remaining arm. Originally, the game was for Loom Dare 48, an online challenge to see who can make the best game over a weekend. The creator behind it decided to take the concept he had and develop a whole game around it, and it's well worth your time if you enjoy survival horror. Here's why. The game is really dead set in the whole you have one arm to do anything with, getting the 3 other limbs torn off in the intro and starting to crawl over and cauterize the wounds with a battery-powered iron. At least I'm assuming it's battery-powered, there's no cord hooked up to an outlet. Every time you move, there's a thump and drag sound as we pull the character along the floor. The whole game is just controlled by this one arm. Even in the menu, your cursor has been replaced with that limb. The game is really upfront about the fact that this is the only thing you can do for locomotion and operating force multipliers. Each weapon is holstered to your back and needs to be manually grabbed by reaching back there, and it's the same for holstering. Reloading isn't just pressing R then waiting for an arbitrary time to pass, but going into the menu, manually take out each empty shot and replacing new rounds for firing. Now, this game could have easily been terrible. Your health bar is an endoparasitic organism slowly making its way to your brain, reset only by medical syringes scattered around the station. Yeah, that's right, your health bar is slowly decreasing the longer you take to progress. Reminded of that fact every time you enter the menu, and by Clyde coughing up blood each time the parasite moves, incentivizing you to move fast with limited locomotion, coupled with the slow reloads and limited inventory space with all those mutant creatures all over the darn place. Speaking of the creatures, while the simple mutated scientist isn't all that threatening by itself, only being concerned in numbers or when paired with other creatures, the majority of the enemies actively punish you for trying to speedrun the game. Corpse traps are stationary hazards that will reach out and rip the player apart if they move too fast or fire anything but the crossbow. Often there will be mutated scientists and rats around, forcing you to move slowly with a limited arsenal. The mutated monkeys have lost their eyesight but detect the player by sound. They move fast and can rip you apart in seconds if spotted. The chief role for them is to be a moving threat, stalling the player's movement while cutting down the amount of weaponry you're able to use on other creatures in the area. The predator can literally teleport near you and has a lunge attack that does a lot of damage, and it soaks up a lot of munitions before being chased off, forcing the player to be on the move and making reloads a tense affair, wondering if it's going to show up and attack while you're busy with that. Then there's the rat, the second enemy you meet, and whose chief role is to go fuck themselves, especially when the game has 2 of them coming at you simultaneously. In all honesty, they're here to get you to panic and waste ammo while trying to hit their quick, small frames. With how the health bar works, incentivizing you to move fast, while the mechanics of the various enemies forcing the player to move slow and methodical at the same time, while limiting the weaponry they can use. This game could have easily been insanely hard for cheap and annoying reasons, but a fine balance exists. As I said, you can only move, shoot, and reload with one hand. It's a top-down style game when your field of vision is limited by the sort of fog of war that steadily dissipates as you move along, and often the player will need to fall back a bit to punch in new shell casings to shoot off approaching enemies. This often leads to frantic moments while enemies are coming right at you. Rats, as annoying as they are, do make a distinct sound to telegraph to the player that they're in the area and make a squeak then pause before charging you, so there is time to equip a gun, kill them. There are ammo and syringe pickups absolutely everywhere. On the floor or in containers that just needs a quick guessing game of which pins do I press in what order to open. You have limited inventory space, but it progressively gets larger throughout the game as you find upgrades for it. I think there was one moment in the whole game where I ran out of bullets, and the syringes for staving off the parasite are spaced off well enough that you might as well inject the stuff as if it's heroin. The weaponry themselves consists of a revolver, a 6-shooter with buttload damage, a shotgun, 2 shots but higher damage, a flare gun that shoots a projectile that can pass through and roast groups of enemies and even bounce off surfaces, single shot but mega damage, Then there's the crossbow, single shot and high damage, and it's the only silent weapon in your arsenal, but requires a hot minute to crank up and load a new bolt. All these factors, the movement, enemies, weapon types, and level design, creates a fine balance between keeping the player feeling vulnerable and being able to fight back. Maintained well by the developers' thought out design, so the game doesn't end up being unfair, as the player tries to hurry through a doomed facility, shooting their way past hordes of enemies, all the while a parasite makes its way to their brain, while precipitating the need to take it slow at times, reminding you that Clyde is a one-armed man. It's effectively tense, made me jumpy every time I heard a rat was in the area or needed to bolt because my health was low or needed to reload or swap weapons. It's survival horror at its core, and the unique selling point of only having one arm to do anything works to make the game stand out in an indie market that is pretty oversaturated. Endoparasitic is only about 3-ish hours long, but I think that's a good length for the developer to explore the concept. Plus, there really isn't much replay value to it. You can figure out the mystery of how the base went to hell from computer logs, scrapped of paper, and dialogue, and the enemy and pickup placements remain the same in each playthrough. But it's still a really well-made game and effectively tense, so for anyone who wants to play a handicapped John Wick, it's $10 on Steam, and I'd say it's well worth the money and highly recommend it to anyone who likes survival horror, to at least check it out.
May the gods have mercy on you, Pravi.